Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be tackling Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit. And we have a pretty unique set of lectures to guide us. They're by Iranian political philosopher Dr. Javad Tabatabai.
Okay, so
Dr. Tabatabai. Hegel, I have to admit, it sounds kind of intimidating.
yeah, it's challenging stuff, no doubt about it. But think of it this way. Tabatabai argues that Hegel is basically the hidden blueprint behind how we think today. Like, understanding Hegel helps us understand how humans went from basic awareness to the self-awareness we have now.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just like some dusty old philosophy. It actually like relates to us.
Absolutely. And Tabatabai's perspective is especially interesting. Right off the bat, he points out how tricky it is to translate Hegel, especially into English or Farsi, whereas like Geist often translated as like mind or spirit. They have these layers of meaning that get lost, you know?
Yeah, it's like trying to explain a really complex flavor to someone who's never tasted it.
Exactly. And it gets even more complicated when we're talking about Hegel's idea of the absolute, or God. Tabatabai explains how Hegel says God is this but not that, constantly evolving throughout history.
So not the kind of God we picture, like, sitting on a cloud.
Not quite. Tabatabai helps make sense of this by comparing different ideas of God. The Old Testament God is about this master-slave relationship, but the Christian God introduces this idea of mediation, like a bridge between us and the divine, fulfilled in the concept of the Trinity.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. This idea of mediation feels important.
You're picking up on it. Tabatabai argues this is central to Hegel's whole project. Hegel maps out how human consciousness develops, always striving for greater understanding through this back and forth of negation and affirmation. It's a process.
Right, and isn't that how we learn anything new? Like we encounter an idea, we struggle with it, and then we kind of come out the other side with a deeper understanding.
Exactly. It's not just passively receiving information, but actively engaging and transforming it.
Right, so we're not sponges, we're more like chefs, I guess.
Yeah.
Taking those raw ingredients and creating something new.
I love that analogy. And Tabatabai uses this framework to analyze history, specifically Western civilization. He dives into ancient Greece, the rise of Christianity, the tension between individual freedom and societal structures, and then boom, the French Revolution.
Hold on. The French Revolution. How does that fit into all this?
Hegel, as interpreted by Tabatabai, makes this fascinating argument. The French Revolution, with its focus on abstract freedom and individual will, was this major turning point. It basically set the stage for the modern world, where we're constantly negotiating the relationship between the individual and the state.
So it's not just a historical event. It's like a manifestation of this evolving consciousness that Hegel's talking about.
Precisely. And Tabatabai even links it to the development of capitalism, showing how these philosophical ideas can be applied to understanding economic systems, too.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking philosophy, religion, history, politics, and economics. This is a true deep dive.
It is, and there's this really powerful concept of the unhappy consciousness, which Tabatabai connects to that feeling of alienation and struggle we often feel in the modern world. It's almost like Hegel and Tabatabai are giving us this early glimpse into existentialism, you know, even before it became a thing.
Whoa, so Hegel was ahead of his time.
It seems that way. Tabatabai's take on all this is really illuminating. Hegel's philosophy, especially seen through this Iranian lens, gives us this framework for understanding the complexities of history, politics, and even our own minds.
Okay, so where does this deep dive into Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit actually begin? It's known for being pretty dense.
Well, Tabatabai emphasizes that reading the Phenomenology of Spirit should be approached like a journey. Think of it as a map of how human consciousness progresses.
Yeah.
Starting from the most basic level, sensory awareness.
Okay, so like a newborn baby just taking in the world.
Exactly, that immediate experience of sights, sounds, and sensations. But Hegel argues that we can't truly understand ourselves or the world until we move beyond this basic awareness and develop self-consciousness.
Self-consciousness. Isn't that just being aware of yourself, like knowing you exist?
It's deeper than that. It's the ability to reflect on ourselves as separate from the world and from others. That's where the idea of the other comes in.
The other.
The other is anything that's not us. It could be another person, an object, even an idea. Hegel argues that it's through interacting with the other that we truly start to understand ourselves.
So it's like we need to see ourselves reflected in something else to truly grasp who we are.
You got it. And this interaction isn't always peaceful. Hegel talks about this struggle for recognition, a power dynamic between the self and the other. He uses the example of a master-slave relationship, where the master seeks to have their self-consciousness affirmed by the slave.
That sounds intense.
It is. And this dynamic, according to Hegel, is a necessary stage in the development of consciousness. Through this struggle, through overcoming this power dynamic, consciousness can reach a higher level.
Okay, so we've got basic sensory awareness, then the struggle with the other, and the development of self-consciousness. Where do we go from there?
This is where Hegel introduces the concept of reason. But he's not just talking about logic and cold, hard facts. He's talking about a much, much broader kind of reason that encompasses our emotional and intuitive capacities.
So it's not just about thinking, it's about feeling and experiencing too.
Yes. Hegel sees reason as the driving force that propels us to understand the world in its totality, integrating different perspectives, even seemingly opposing viewpoints to ultimately arrive at a more complete understanding of reality.
That's a pretty tall order. How does this expanded reason actually work in the world?
Hegel outlines several stages in the development of reason. One of the most important is observing reason, where we turn our attention outward, trying to understand the natural world through observation and analysis.
So like the birth of the scientific method.
Exactly. But Hegel believed that observing reason, while important, has its limitations. It can create this detached view of the world, separating the observer from the observed. He argues that we need to move beyond this detachment and recognize the interconnectedness of everything.
Okay, so observing is a good starting point, but we need to go deeper. What's the next step?
Hegel calls the next stage active reason. It's the realization that we're not just passively watching the world, we're active participants shaping and being shaped by everything around us.
So we're not just watching the game, we're players on the field, influencing the very reality we're trying to understand.
Yes. And this realization that we're part of this web of relationships brings this whole new level of understanding. It's a shift from an objective view of reason to a more subjective, self-aware perspective.
This is blowing my mind. So we're observing, we're participating. Where does this journey of reason take us next?
Hegel calls the next stage reason as a tester. Now consciousness starts to critically examine its own assumptions and biases. It's like reason turns inward, scrutinizing itself for any inconsistencies.
So it's like reason is putting itself on trial, trying to find any flaws in its own thinking.
Exactly, and this is crucial because it allows us to move beyond blind faith or dogma and arrive at a more grounded understanding. It's very much like the scientific method testing and refining our understanding through constant self-reflection.
So we're constantly learning, growing, evolving our understanding of the world and ourselves.
Precisely. And that constant process of questioning and testing, according to Hegel, is essential for the advancement of both individual consciousness and human knowledge as a whole. It's how we move closer to the truth.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. But where does Hegel go from here? What happens after reason has tested itself and refined its understanding?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. After reason has tested itself, it moves to a new level of understanding that Hegel calls spirit.
Spirit. Okay, now I'm really lost. We've gone from sensory awareness to self-consciousness to reason, and now we're talking about spirit. What exactly is spirit in this context?
That's a great question, and it's one that has puzzled philosophers for centuries. Hegel's concept of spirit is incredibly complex, but in essence, it refers to the collective consciousness of humanity. It's the shared values, beliefs, and cultural norms that shape our understanding of the world and our place within it.
So spirit is like the air we breathe. It's all around us, influencing our thoughts and actions, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
A perfect analogy. Spirit is this invisible force that connects us all. It's the foundation of our social structures, our political systems, our art, our religion, everything that makes us human.
This is amazing. But if spirit is this collective consciousness, How does it develop? Does it go through the same stages as individual consciousness?
That's exactly what Hegel explores in the Phenomenology. He argues that spirit, just like individual consciousness, evolves through a series of stages, each building upon the previous one.
Okay, so we've got spirit, the collective consciousness of humanity, and it's developing in stages. What are these stages? Where does this journey of spirit take us?
Hegel outlines several stages in the development of spirit, and each stage corresponds to a particular historical epoch. He begins with the stage of objective spirit. This is the stage where spirit manifests itself in concrete institutions and social structures.
Institutions and social structures. Can you give me some examples?
Think of ancient civilizations with their laws, customs, and religious practices. These are all expressions of objective spirit. It's the stage where human consciousness, having developed through self-consciousness and reason, begins to externalize itself, to create a world that reflects its own understanding.
So it's like humanity is building a house for its collective consciousness. Yeah. Creating a physical and social environment that embodies its shared values and beliefs.
Exactly. And this house isn't static. It's constantly being renovated and remodeled as spirit evolves.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. We have objective spirit embodied in social structures and institutions. What comes next in the development of spirit?
The next stage is absolute spirit. This is the stage where spirit becomes self-aware, recognizing itself as the ultimate source of meaning and purpose. It's the culmination of the journey where human consciousness achieves its highest form of development.
Absolute spirit. That sounds pretty lofty. How does Hegel describe this ultimate stage of spirit?
Hegel sees absolute spirit as the realization of freedom and self-determination. It's the point where human consciousness transcends its limitations, understands its own role in shaping reality, and embraces its potential for creativity and self-expression.
Wow. It sounds like absolute spirit is the ultimate goal, the end point of this whole journey of consciousness.
In a way, yes, but it's important to remember that for Hegel, this journey is never truly finished. It's a continuous process of development and self-discovery.
Okay, so even at the level of absolute spirit, there's still room for growth and evolution.
Absolutely. Hegel believed that consciousness is always striving for greater understanding, for a more complete realization of its potential.
This is a lot to absorb, but I'm starting to see how Hegel's ideas, as interpreted by Tabatabai, can help us understand not only the evolution of human consciousness, but also the development of human history and culture.
Exactly. Hegel's phenomenology is a roadmap for understanding how we got to where we are today, both as individuals and as a species.
So where does Dr. Tabatabai take us next in his lectures?
Well, he then shifts his focus to the idea that understanding the historical unfolding of spirit is key to understanding Hegel.
Okay, so it's not enough to just grasp the theoretical concepts. We need to see how they play out in the real world.
Precisely. Tabatabai argues that for Hegel, philosophy isn't just this abstract exercise. It's deeply intertwined with history. Hegel believed that the history of philosophy is, in a sense, the history of spirit itself.
So Hegel sees history as the stage on which the drama of spirit unfolds.
Exactly. And just as spirit evolves through stages, so too does history. Hegel saw history as a progression, a movement from less developed forms of consciousness to more developed forms.
Okay, so how does Hegel actually apply this idea of spirit to history? Where does he begin?
Hegel starts with ancient civilizations, specifically ancient Greece. He saw the Greek polis with its emphasis on reason, citizenship, and the pursuit of knowledge as a high point in the development of objective spirit.
So the ancient Greeks were like the star pupils in Hegel's history class.
You could say that. Hegel admired the Greeks for their emphasis on reason and their ability to create a society that valued individual freedom and participation in public life. He saw this as a significant advancement in the evolution of spirit.
But even the Greeks weren't perfect, right? Didn't their civilization eventually decline?
Yes, of course. No civilization lasts forever, and Hegel saw the decline of the Greek polis as a necessary step in the development of spirit.
Necessary. How could decline be necessary?
Because it paved the way for the next stage of spirit's evolution. For Hegel, progress isn't always linear. Sometimes it involves setbacks and regressions. It's through overcoming these challenges that spirit can advance to a higher level.
So the fall of the Greek polis wasn't a failure, but a necessary transition to a new stage of development.
Exactly. And for Hegel, this new stage was marked by the rise of Christianity.
Christianity. How does that fit into Hegel's view of history and spirit?
Hegel saw Christianity as a crucial step in the development of spirit because it introduced the concept of a universal God, a God of love and compassion who transcended the limitations of the Greek pantheon. He believed that Christianity helped to pave the way for a more universal, inclusive understanding of humanity.
So Christianity, with its emphasis on love and forgiveness, represented a kind of spiritual evolution from the more reason-based worldview of the ancient Greeks.
That's a good way to put it. Hegel saw Christianity as a necessary stage in the development of subjective spirit, the stage where consciousness turns inward and focuses on individual morality and personal faith.
Okay, so we have the ancient Greeks representing objective spirit, and then Christianity ushering in the era of subjective spirit. Where does history go from there?
Hegel traces the development of subjective spirit through the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and the Reformation. He sees this period as a time of great intellectual and spiritual ferment, where individual consciousness asserted itself against the authority of the church and the feudal system.
So it's like humanity was going through a kind of rebellious teenage phase,
Yeah.
questioning authority and trying to figure out its own identity.
That's a great analogy. And just like any teenager, humanity made some mistakes along the way. But these mistakes, these struggles, were all part of the learning process.
So all of this turmoil and upheaval was ultimately contributing to the development of spirit.
Exactly. Hegel believed that even the darkest periods of history, even the most violent conflicts, were ultimately contributing to the advancement of consciousness.
Wow, that's a pretty optimistic view of history.
Yeah.
So what comes after this period of subjective spirit? Where does Hegel take us next?
Well, Tabatabai explains that Hegel then turns his attention to the Enlightenment, which he sees as a pivotal turning point in the development of spirit.
The Enlightenment, that makes sense. It was a time of tremendous intellectual and scientific progress, a real celebration of reason and human potential.
Exactly. Hegel saw the Enlightenment as a triumph of reason, a culmination of centuries of philosophical and scientific inquiry. But he also recognized that the Enlightenment had its limitations.
Limitations? What do you mean?
Hegel believed that the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason could, if taken to extremes, lead to a kind of abstract, detached view of the world, one that ignored the importance of tradition, culture, and the emotional and spiritual dimensions of human experience.
So it's like the Enlightenment in its zeal for reason through the baby out in the bathwater forgot about the importance of the heart and the soul.
That's a good way to put it. Hegel believed that reason, while essential, needed to be balanced with other aspects of human experience.
So where did this critique of the Enlightenment lead Hegel? What did he see as the next stage in the development of spirit?
Well, this is where Tabatabai highlights how Hegel turns his attention to the French Revolution.
The French Revolution, how does that fit in?
Hegel saw the French Revolution as this culmination of the Enlightenment's emphasis on individual freedom and equality, but he also saw it as a cautionary tale, a warning against the dangers of abstract reason and the potential for violence and chaos when these ideas are unleashed without proper consideration for the complexity of human society.
So the French Revolution, with its ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, was both a triumph and a tragedy.
Exactly. Hegel believed that the French Revolution represented a necessary step in the development of spirit, but he also recognized that it had gone too far, that it had descended into violence and terror.
Okay, so we have the ancient Greeks, Christianity, the Enlightenment, and the French Revolution. Where does Hegel's grand historical narrative go from there? What's the next chapter in the story of spirit?
Hegel saw his own time, the early 19th century, as this period of transition. He believed that the world was on the cusp of a new era, one that would synthesize the best aspects of the past while overcoming its limitations.
So it's like humanity was entering adulthood, having learned from its youthful mistakes and ready to create a more mature, balanced world.
Precisely. And Hegel believed that philosophy had a crucial role to play in guiding humanity towards this new era.
So for Hegel, philosophy wasn't just about understanding the past. It was about shaping the future.
Exactly. Hegel believed that philosophy had the power to help humanity understand its own history, recognize its own potential, and create a better world.
Okay, but how does that actually work? How can philosophy help us create a better world?
Hegel believed that philosophy, by revealing the inner workings of spirit, could help humanity overcome the contradictions and conflicts that plagued the world. He saw philosophy as a tool for reconciliation, for bringing together opposing viewpoints and creating a more harmonious society.
So philosophy is like a peacemaker.
Yeah.
Hoping to bridge the divides that separate us.
That's a great way to put it. Hegel believed that philosophy had the power to heal the wounds of the past and create a more just and equitable world.
This is really inspiring. But how does this all tie back to Dr. Tabatabai and his lectures on Hegel?
Tabatabai argues that Hegel's vision of history, with its emphasis on the development of spirit, can be applied to understanding the trajectory of not just Western civilization, but also other cultures and historical narratives.
So it's not just a Eurocentric view of history.
Yeah.
Hegel's ideas can be applied more broadly.
Precisely. Tabatabai challenges us to think beyond the confines of Western thought and consider how Hegel's ideas might resonate in different cultural contexts.
This is fascinating. But before we go any further, let's pause here for a moment and recap what we've covered so far. We've delved into Hegel's concept of spirit, its evolution through various stages, and this manifestation in history. We've also touched upon Tabatabai's unique perspective as an Iranian scholar, highlighting the potential for applying Hegel's ideas to understanding different cultural and historical context.
Excellent summary. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still much more to explore in Tabatabai's lectures.
That's right. We've only just scratched the surface. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into some of the specific concepts and arguments that Tabatabai highlights in his lectures, exploring the nuances of Hegel's thought and its relevance to our world today.
Stay tuned.
So we've covered a lot about Hegel's big picture view of history, but let's kind of zoom in on some of the specific concepts that Tabatabai unpacks in his lectures. What else does Tabatabai highlight?
One thing he really digs into is the challenge of translating Hegel, especially key terms like Geist. He says translating it simply as mind or spirit just doesn't cut it.
Right. We talked about that earlier. It's like trying to fit a whole universe of meaning into a single word.
Exactly. And Tabatabai says those nuances are super important for getting what Hegel was really trying to do.
So how are we supposed to grapple with these almost like untranslatable terms?
Tabatabai encourages us to be like detectives, pay close attention to the context and try to understand the different layers of meaning that these terms carry.
Ooh, I like that, philosophical detectives.
And one of the most important clues is Hegel's idea of the absolute.
Okay, the absolute. I'm still a little fuzzy on what that actually means.
In a nutshell, the absolute is Hegel's concept of God, but it's not the God you might picture from traditional religious texts. For Hegel, the absolute is dynamic, constantly evolving, and encompasses all of reality.
So less about a being with a beard on a cloud, more about like the entire universe itself.
You're getting warmer. Think of it as the ultimate ground of being, the source of all meaning and purpose. And here's the really mind-blowing part. This absolute isn't separate from the world. It's constantly revealing itself through the process of history.
Wait, so God is revealing itself through history. How does that work?
Hegel uses that idea of mediation we talked about earlier. The absolute expresses itself through our actions and experiences throughout history. It's like God is working through us, being shaped by the drama of human history.
Bro, okay, I'm starting to get a little dizzy here. So it's through our struggles, our triumphs, even our mistakes, that the absolute is revealing itself.
Exactly. Hegel sees history as this grand stage where the absolute is constantly playing out its self-realization, and just like in a play, there are different acts, scenes, characters. Each historical epoch, each cultural movement, each individual life contributes to the unfolding of the absolute.
So then where do we fit into all this? What's our role?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one that Tabatabai really emphasizes. He says that for Hegel, understanding history isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's a call to action.
I mean, what we're not just supposed to sit back and watch history happen?
Yeah, right. Hegel believed that by understanding the unfolding of the absolute, we can become more conscious participants in shaping a better future.
I like that, becoming more conscious participants.
And Tabatabai reminds us that this isn't some lofty philosophical ideal. It has real world consequences for how we live, how we engage in politics, how we treat each other.
So understanding Hegel can actually help us become better human beings.
That's the hope. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness, seeing the bigger picture, and understanding our role in the grand scheme of things.
That makes sense. But okay, let's get back to Dr. Tabatabai's lectures. What other key concepts does he unpack?
He spends a good deal of time on Hegel's concept of dialectic. Now this isn't just a fancy word for debate. It's a very specific way of thinking.
Oh, I remember this from my philosophy class. Thesis, antithesis. It all went over my head.
Well, Tabatabai helps clear things up. The dialectic is all about understanding how ideas evolve through this process of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. It's how spirit moves forward and how history progresses.
Okay, remind me how that works again.
So you start with a thesis, an initial idea. Then you encounter its opposite, the antithesis, creating this tension that needs to be resolved.
Got it. Thesis, antithesis, tension. Then what?
Then comes the synthesis. This is where, through critical thinking, a new idea emerges that combines elements of both the thesis and antithesis, resolving the tension and taking us to a higher level of understanding.
So it's like two ideas are fighting, and from that fight, a new stronger idea is born.
That's one way to put it. And for Hegel, this back and forth is the engine of progress, both for our individual minds and for society as a whole.
Now, I think I'm starting to see how the dialectic works. Can you give me an example, something from real life?
Sure. Let's look at the concept of freedom. Let's say the thesis is the idea of absolute individual freedom, doing whatever you want, whenever you want.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Sure, but taken to an extreme, it can cause problems. What happens when my freedom infringes on your freedom? That's where the antithesis comes in social responsibility. The idea that sometimes we need to limit individual freedom for the good of the collective.
So it's the classic clash between individual rights and the needs of society.
Exactly, and that's where Hegel's dialectic helps. It's not about choosing one side over the other. It's about finding a way to synthesize these opposing ideas, to find a balance.
So how do we actually do that? Find that balance between freedom and responsibility.
That's where careful thinking, critical reflection, and a willingness to see different perspectives come in. Hegel believed that through that kind of intellectual work, we can arrive at a higher understanding of freedom, one that recognizes both individual rights and the need for a functioning society.
So it's not about picking a side, it's about finding a Finding a way to integrate the best of both.
Exactly. And that ability to grapple with complexity and embrace nuance is what drives progress, both personally and for society as a whole.
I like that. So we've got the dialectic. What other nuggets of wisdom does Tabatabai share?
He spends quite a bit of time on Hegel's concept of reason,
Mhm.
but again, this isn't the dry logical reason we might think of. Hegel had a much more expansive, almost spiritual understanding of reason.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. What does he mean by reason then?
For Hegel, reason isn't just about following rules or logic. It's about recognizing the inherent rationality of the universe itself.
So like seeing the patterns, the connections that tie everything together.
Exactly. It's that capacity to grasp the interconnectedness of all things, to see the big picture and understand the underlying purpose of existence.
Wow, this is getting pretty deep.
Yeah.
Is Hegel saying that reason is some kind of spiritual force?
You could say that. He believed that reason is more than just a human ability. It's a fundamental principle woven into the fabric of the universe. It's the driving force behind evolution, the creative impulse that gives rise to life and consciousness.
This is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
So we've got this expansive view of reason as this cosmic force guiding the universe. How does that connect back to everything else we've been talking about?
Well, for Hegel, reason is how we can understand the absolute. It's how we see the unfolding of spirit in history, recognize our place in all of it, and become more conscious participants in creating a better future.
So reason is like a bridge between us and the absolute.
That's a great way to put it. Hegel believed that reason is the key to unlocking our full potential, both as individuals and as a species.
Okay, we've covered a lot. The absolute, dialectic, reason. What else do we need to understand about Hegel?
There's one more concept that Tabatabai focuses on, and that's Hegel's idea of freedom.
Freedom. Everyone loves freedom.
Yeah.
What did Hegel mean by that?
It's a lot more nuanced than we might initially think. For Hegel, freedom isn't just about the absence of external constraints. It's about fully realizing our potential as rational beings.
So it's not just about breaking free from chains. It's about developing our inner capacity to make choices, to determine our own lives.
Exactly. But here's the twist. Hegel believed that true freedom is only possible when we align our individual will with the rational will of the absolute.
Wait, my freedom depends on aligning myself with the absolute. That sounds kind of restrictive. Like I'm giving up my individuality.
That's a common misconception. Hegel isn't saying we become mindless followers. He's saying that true freedom comes from recognizing that we are part of something larger than ourselves, and that choosing to act in accordance with the rational principles of the universe is how we achieve true freedom.
So it's like understanding that we're all in this together, and that true freedom comes from making choices that benefit not just ourselves but everyone.
You're getting it? True freedom isn't selfish or self-indulgent. It's about recognizing our responsibility to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us.
Wow, this is really making me rethink my whole idea of what it means to be free.
That's the power of Hegel. He challenges us to think beyond our own immediate desires and consider the well-being of the whole.
Yeah, this is a lot to take in. Where do we go from here in our deep dive into Hegel?
Well, now that we've laid out these foundational concepts, Tabatabai takes us right into the heart of Hegel's phenomenology of spirit. He explores those different stages of consciousness that Hegel outlines and shows how they fit into his whole philosophical system.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into the phenomenology. Where does Tabatabai begin?
He starts with one of the most famous sections, the master-slave dialectic. We touched on this earlier, but Tabatabai really gets into the nitty-gritty and shows how central it is to Hegel's ideas about how self-consciousness develops.
Okay, I need a refresher. How does the master-slave dialectic work again?
It's all about this struggle for recognition. Hegel says that to fully develop self-consciousness, we need to be recognized by another self-aware being. But this recognition can't just be given freely. It has to be earned through a struggle, like a kind of existential contest where each individual is risking everything to have their existence affirmed.
So it's like a philosophical duel where the stakes are nothing less than the recognition of one's own being.
That captures the intensity. Hegel saw this struggle for recognition as fundamental to human experience, a driving force behind the evolution of consciousness.
Okay, so we have two individuals locked in this struggle, each willing to risk everything to have their selfhood recognized. What happens next?
Hegel says that this struggle initially leads to a relationship of domination and submission. One individual, the master, wins, asserting their power over the other, the slave.
So it's like a winner-take-all situation. The master gets recognition and the slave gets nothing.
Not quite. Hegel sees this victory as a hollow triumph for the master. While they achieve dominance, they become dependent on the slave for their recognition.
Dependent, but how can the master, the one with all the power, be dependent on the slave?
That's the paradox of the master-slave dialectic. The master, by asserting their dominance, creates a situation where their own sense of self is ultimately dependent on the slave acknowledging them.
So both master and the slave are trapped in this dynamic.
Exactly. And it sets up a tension that can't last forever.
How does that tension break down?
Well, Hegel says that the slave, through their labor, starts to transform the world around them. They develop skills, create things, and gain a sense of agency and self-worth that the master, obsessed with being recognized, actually lacks.
So it's through shaping their environment that the slave starts to reclaim their own sense of self.
Precisely. And this gradual shift in power, this recognition of the slave's own worth eventually leads to the overthrow of the master and the emergence of a new, more egalitarian form of consciousness.
So the master-slave dialectic isn't just about power and domination. It's about the struggle for recognition and the hard-won development of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this struggle isn't just a personal one. It plays out on a larger scale throughout history. Hegel saw this dynamic as a driving force in the evolution of human society from ancient times to the present day.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. So we've got the struggle for recognition, the emergence of self-consciousness. What comes next in Hegel's phenomenology? What other stages are there?
Tabatabai then dives into Hegel's discussion of Stoicism and skepticism, two philosophical schools that were popular in ancient Greece.
Stoicism and skepticism. I vaguely remember those. What were those all about again?
To put it simply, Stoicism is about accepting what you can't control and focusing on what you can. It's all about virtue, reason, and living in harmony with nature. Skepticism, on the other hand, is about questioning everything, doubting the possibility of certain knowledge and suspending judgment.
So Stoicism is about accepting the way things are, and skepticism is about questioning everything.
That's the gist of it. And Hegel saw these two schools of thought as representing important stages in the development of consciousness.
Okay, I'm curious, how do Stoicism and skepticism fit into Hegel's grand scheme of things?
Hegel saw Stoicism as an attempt to achieve freedom by withdrawing from the world, detaching from external events and seeking inner peace.
So like building a wall around yourself to shut out the chaos of life.
Exactly. But Hegel believed that that this kind of retreat from the world is a dead end. He said true freedom isn't about escaping reality. It's about engaging with it, transforming it, and shaping it according to our own rational will.
So Stoicism is a kind of a false freedom, a way of avoiding the real challenges of life.
That's how Hegel saw it, and he believed that that skepticism was a necessary counterpoint to this tendency to withdraw.
So skepticism is like a wake-up call, forcing us to confront the limitations of our own knowledge and the uncertainty of the world.
Exactly. Hegel saw skepticism as a valuable tool for challenging dogma, questioning authority, and developing a more critical and self-aware perspective.
But skepticism can also be taken too far.
Right. Absolutely. While skepticism can help us break free from rigid thinking, Hegel believed that taken to extremes, it could lead to paralysis, a kind of nihilistic despair that prevents us from acting or engaging with the world.
So it's like that old saying, everything in moderation.
That's a good way to put it. Hegel believed that we need to balance these two tendencies, the need to engage with the world and the need to be aware of our own limitations.
Okay, so we've got Stoicism, skepticism, and the importance of finding a balance between the two. Where does Hegel take us next?
Tabatabai then brings up this really intriguing but kind of unsettling concept, unhappy consciousness.
Unhappy consciousness. Now you've got me hooked. What is that?
Unhappy consciousness is this state of alienation and despair that Hegel believed was part of a certain stage in the development of spirit. It's that feeling of being divided against yourself, of longing for something you can't quite grasp.
So like feeling lost and disconnected, searching for meaning, but not knowing where to find it.
You nailed it. Hegel saw unhappy consciousness as a spiritual crisis where we feel separated from the world and from God.
Okay, I can definitely relate to that. But
Yeah.
how do you get out of that state? What's the cure for unhappy consciousness?
Hegel believed that the way out is through self-reconciliation, through recognizing that the divine isn't some external force, but something that exists within us all.
So it's like realizing that God isn't up in the clouds, but within each one of us.
That's the idea. Hegel believed that the key to overcoming unhappy consciousness is through spiritual self-discovery, recognizing that we are part of something larger than ourselves, and embracing our own potential for creativity and self-expression.
So unhappy consciousness is a state of alienation that we can overcome by connecting with our inner selves and realizing our connection to something bigger.
That's a great way to summarize it. It's about finding that sense of wholeness and purpose.
Where does Hegel's phenomenology take us from there?
Tabatabai then revisits the concept of reason, which we talked about earlier, but here Hegel focuses specifically on how reason shapes our understanding of the world and our place in it.
So reason is coming back into focus. It's time for reason to take the wheel.
Exactly. Hegel saw reason as the way to overcome the limitations of unhappy consciousness.
But how does reason actually help us overcome those feelings of alienation and despair?
Hegel argued that reason allows us to move beyond a purely subjective emotional understanding of the world and to develop a more objective, rational perspective.
So it's about taking a step back and trying to see the world clearly without letting our emotions cloud our judgment.
Yes, Hegel believed that reason can help us recognize the interconnectedness of all things, the patterns and processes that govern reality.
So reason is like a pair of glasses that helps us see the bigger picture.
Precisely. And this broader view of reality, this recognition of how everything fits together can help us overcome those feelings of isolation and meaninglessness that are part of unhappy consciousness.
Okay, so we move from unhappy consciousness to reason, and reason helps us see the world in a new light. What happens next in our journey through the phenomenology?
This is where Tabatabai highlights one of the most challenging and rewarding sections of the phenomenology, Hegel's discussion of spirit.
Spirit. We've talked about that before, but I'm still struggling to grasp it fully.
It's a tricky concept, no doubt. To refresh our memories, spirit for Hegel is the collective consciousness of humanity. It's that shared wellspring of values, beliefs, and aspirations that shape how we understand the world.
So like the invisible threads that connect us all, the stories, myths, and dreams that give us a sense of belonging.
Beautifully put. Hegel believed that spirit isn't separate from us. It's something we create together through our interactions with each other and the world around us.
Okay, so spirit is this constantly evolving collective creation, but how does it actually work? How does it shape our our lives.
Hegel argued that spirit shows up in different ways throughout history, from the customs and traditions of ancient societies to the laws and institutions of the modern world.
So everything from our religious beliefs to our political systems to our artistic expressions are all reflections of spirit.
Exactly. And spirit, according to Hegel, is always evolving, going through different stages of development, just like individual consciousness. He saw human history as the story of how this collective consciousness shapes and is shaped by the world.
That's a powerful way to think about history. But if spirit is always evolving, where is it headed? What's the end game?
Hegel believed that the ultimate goal of spirit is to achieve what he called absolute knowledge, a state of complete self-awareness and self-understanding.
Absolute knowledge. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
No.
What would it even mean to have absolute knowledge?
For Hegel, it's not about memorizing facts or mastering certain skills. It's about understanding the fundamental principles that make reality tick. It's about seeing the interconnectedness of all things and understanding the role of spirit in shaping the world.
So it's like achieving total enlightenment, seeing the world perfectly, clearly, and understanding our place in the grand scheme of things.
That's a good way to think about it. Hegel believed absolute knowledge is the culmination of the journey of consciousness, the point where spirit realizes its full potential and achieves true freedom.
So we've got individual consciousness evolving through different stages, and this bigger collective consciousness spirit evolving through history. And the goal is to reach this state of absolute knowledge, this ultimate freedom and self-understanding.
Exactly. And Tabatabai emphasizes that for Hegel, this journey isn't just a theoretical exercise. It's a call to action.
Meaning what? That we're supposed to do something with this knowledge.
Right. He believed that by understanding the unfolding of spirit, we can become more conscious participants in creating a better future.
So understanding Hegel can actually help us make the world a better place.
That's the hope. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness, seeing the bigger picture, and understanding our role in the grand scheme of things.
This has been such a mind-expanding conversation.
Yeah.
What else does Tabatabai highlight in his lectures?
He concludes by focusing on the significance of Hegel's philosophy of right. He reminds us that Hegel saw the state as the highest form of ethical life in the world, the culmination of the development of objective spirit.
The state? Isn't that getting a bit political?
Hegel wasn't afraid to tackle political issues, and his philosophy of right is one of the most influential works on political thought ever written.
Okay, I'm interested. What was Hegel's take on the state? What did he think its role was?
He believed the state is more than just a collection of individuals. It's an organic whole, a rational institution that embodies the ethical principles of a society.
So the state is like the physical embodiment of a society's values and beliefs.
Exactly. Hegel saw the state as the highest expression of objective spirit, the institution that brings together the individual and the universal.
I'm starting to see how this fits into his overall philosophy, but what are the implications of this view? Does it mean we should just blindly obey the law and whoever's in power?
Not at all. Hegel wasn't advocating blind obedience or authoritarianism. He believed that ideally the state is a rational institution that reflects the will of the people. He saw constitutional government as a crucial step in the state's evolution toward its true form.
So for Hegel, the ideal state is both rational and democratic, a place where individual needs and the needs of the whole are in harmony.
Precisely. Hegel believed that in its highest form, the state is an expression of freedom, a space where individuals can realize their full potential as rational, ethical beings.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on the state. It's not just a political entity, but an expression of our shared humanity.
Exactly, and Tabatabai reminds us that Hegel challenges us to think critically about the institutions that shape our lives and to work towards creating a more just and ethical world.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here: the absolute, the dialectic, the master-slave dialectic, unhappy consciousness, reason, spirit, and the state. Anything else we should discuss before we wrap things up?
Tabatabai ends his lectures on a really powerful note. He reminds us that Hegel's philosophy, while complex and challenging, is ultimately a philosophy of hope.
Hope, really.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about this, but it still seems like a lot of his ideas are pretty heavy and focus on struggle and alienation.
That's a common misinterpretation of Hegel. Yes, he acknowledged the hardships of life, but he also deeply believed that history is progressing in a positive direction towards greater freedom, rationality, and self-awareness.
So even with the bumps along the way, we're heading towards a better place.
That's what Hegel believed. He saw reason as the driving force of history, and while reason might make mistakes along the way, it's ultimately guiding us towards a more just and equitable world.
That's a truly inspiring message. It gives me hope that even with all the problems we face today, we're capable of creating a better future.
And Tabatabai reminds us that we each have a role to play in that process by understanding the unfolding of spirit, by engaging with the world in a conscious and ethical way. We can help to create a better future for everyone.
Well, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit with Dr. Tabatabai. This has been an amazing journey, and I feel like I've learned so much, not just about philosophy, but about history and myself.
It's been a true pleasure exploring these ideas with you and our listeners. Remember, Hegel's philosophy isn't a quick fix or a simple answer to life's big questions. It's an invitation to think deeply, question your assumptions, and embrace the complexity of the world around you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time,